Welcome back to another episode of Weights and Wealth. We have our third interview here today. We're very excited. Today we've got Earl Fleetwood with us. Earl, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and maybe your journey through businesses to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting off with, thank you guys for having me on. But again, name's Earl Fleetwood. I'm a real estate broker here in Charleston, South Carolina. Originally from super small town, other side of the state, been in Charleston for about 10 years, done a whole bunch of random business ventures to kind of find my one thing that we really focus on now, which is just real estate. So been rolling with real estate for about 4 years, started this brokerage last year, got an awesome team of about 10 people really working here at Bright City. And it's been amazing, just along for the ride. So,
yeah. Earl's been kind of a serial entrepreneur, so we'll go through maybe his background a little bit. Before we continue, can you just get a little bit closer to the table and the mic?
Yeah,
so the
absolutely.
audio is consistent. All right. So first, we'll start with the wealth wisdom of the week, and Earl's actually going to do that for us this week. So he's going to surprise us with wealth wisdom here.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this as far as like great tips. The first one that came to my head is this, really small thing, but in any opportunity that you ever have to negotiate, just ask for 10% off. That is my wealth wisdom tip for the week. If you're buying a car, if you're buying a house, if you have an opportunity to negotiate, just ask for 10% off. Like, you're not going to gain an extraordinary amount of wealth by just saving and by just getting discounts on everything, but it will help along the way and also will build negotiation skills, I think. And it compounds. Like, if you do that throughout your entire life, I mean, $1,000 here, $1,000 there, $10,000 here, like build over a lifetime. I mean, that is a lot of money. So ask for 10% off always. You might get it, you might not. You might get 5%, but a lot of times people just say, hey, you can have it.
Does that apply to the grocery store as well? Are you buying your groceries?
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. I have some really funny stories about negotiating actually with groceries. With my dad. That's more like kind of produce stuff. Like
we can start there because that was your first business, right? Fleety's Produce.
Yeah. So technically that's my second business. My first business ever was actually Fleety Freeze. That was selling slushies. So my dad, I love my dad so much. He put me in a lot of opportunities to really express myself, to be a business person and do a lot of cool things. And he had a pawn shop and a gas station and a pool hall. So literally every day after school, I would go to this pool hall, hang out, shoot pool, work at the gas station. I would help negotiate in a pawn shop. And one of the things I got to add on to the gas station was Fleety Freeze. We went to a flea market. I bought I think it was like a slushy machine. I literally took Sharpie and wrote it on top, Fleety Freeze. Sold them things for $1. Did that for probably a couple years. I remember I saved up enough to buy my first gun with that. That was like what I was saving towards. I remember that too, man. It's so funny. But yeah, I was like at the beginning of things. I was probably like 7, 8 years old, somewhere in there.
That's Western South Carolina. So you were pretty young, 7, 8 years old.
Yeah, that's Allendale, South Carolina. And I used to run the cash register for my dad and stuff. It's so funny. He had it made, man. He didn't even pay me. He'd just be like, "Hey, I'll trade you for things in the pawn shop." You know what I mean? He'd be like, "Hey, if you work, 20 hours this week, I'll give you a pocket knife, or something like that." So it'd be a lot of things like that. But it really helped in me, I feel like, build a strong foundation of like people skills, and at the same time skills that I still use today, working in real estate and those kinds of things. So.
Okay, yeah, and then after Fleety's Freeze came your produce, Fleety's Produce.
Yeah, so and that didn't really have a name. I didn't really brand it as like Fleety's Produce or anything. But probably around the age of 11 to 12, we moved towns. So we moved from this town of Sycamore, South Carolina, in Allendale, town of like 180 people, to Barnwell, South Carolina, which had about 3,000 people.
Wow.
So big old city there. Moved there, and we lived right by the road. And my dad was, he had switched jobs. He actually sold his business at that point and got a new job, but he was still like trying to make an entrepreneur out of me. And he was like, "Hey, you ever thought about selling boiled peanuts?" And I'm like, "I love boiled peanuts." You know what I mean? So I borrowed a little money from my dad. I remember I used to buy propane for $16 a tank.
How old were you at this point?
Probably 11 or 12.
Okay.
Yeah, 11 or 12 here, buying propane for $16 a tank. I would go to Campbell's Produce in Barmel. I'll negotiate for a bushel of peanuts. Normal prices were like $44 a bushel, but I try to get them down to like 40 every week, trying to get that 10% off, you know. And we usually meet in the middle, and I would buy like a bushel or two of peanuts every single week, and I would literally sit on the side of the road, had a big old pot and propane tank and a burner, and I would cook peanuts. I had my recipe down, and every weekend, I did that for probably 3 or 4 years. Literally as a little kid, still on the side of the road, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I would sell peanuts. Anything I had left on Sunday, what I usually do is I would bag up $5 bags, and I would actually go door to door after that on Sundays. And we had a couple trailer parks kind of near our house. They were like larger trailer parks. I'm talking like 80, 100 home trailer parks. And I would literally go door to door in trailer parks and basically knock on doors, be like, hey, do you guys want some boiled peanuts? And I'm like this little chunky redheaded kid, and like people would be walking out and they got like a gun and they're like, what do you want? And I'm like, you'll buy some peanuts? And they're like, oh, okay. And they put their gun down and they buy a couple bags from me. But it was great. I mean, I did that for, like I said, 3 or 4 years, somewhere in that range, and actually saved up a lot of money. I mean, I did from that, I bought my first car, and that kind of launched me into my next thing of like starting to flip cars. I did that I still do that today, but like, it's just kind of like a hobby on the side. But flipping cars was my thing. I would like ride around and like, you know, and I couldn't even drive. So I would like get my dad to drive me around, and like we'll find a car. I remember one of the first cars I bought was like $250. It was a 1984 Dodge Rampage. It was like doo-doo brown. Didn't have any tires on it, was up on blocks, but it ran. Mm-hmm. And I bought it for $250. I put maybe like $400 in the tires, like cleaned it up a little bit. And I'm trying to think, we actually, I think that one I traded for a motorcycle. Ended up selling the motorcycle for like $2,000. And then I started doing it again. I remember I bought some like Tacomas, and I started buying like work trucks. Mm-hmm. I found like work trucks being out in the country like sold really well. So
sure,
did that, flipped a lot of trucks, and you know, that kind of became the end of the boiled peanut business. And I started working with my dad a little bit. He was doing more stuff with produce. So he got out of his other job and started his own thing, which is actually still going today. And that's Southfield Bait and Tackle. And that's, he sells watermelons he's selling probably 2,000 or 3,000 watermelons a week during the summer out there. So started hauling watermelons with him, all kinds of stuff. So
Nick, did you ever have any businesses as a kid, like selling anything like that?
No, I didn't. There were a couple things that I like attempted that didn't really pan out. Like I remember I wanted to start cleaning garbage cans, and I sent out a bunch of flyers and didn't get any bites on that. But I should have tried like the door to door route, because, you know, I pretty much just put out flyers and didn't get any answers and was like, oh, well.
Yeah. Dude, you build balls going door to door as a little kid.
Yeah.
Just like straight up, man. Like it's, you know, it's nerve wracking a little bit, but like, yeah.
I mean,
it's hard.
I did do some of that shoveling snow. I remember, because if like school got canceled because of a snowstorm, I would just go door to door and try to shovel people's driveways, and made some decent money doing that. You know, you go to the neighborhoods that have all the huge houses, and they'll pay you like $100 to shovel their driveway. So
I feel like anyone that's in sales was in Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts as a kid, selling popcorn, getting that door to door experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to say I was in Boy Scouts. It's funny. I don't remember selling the popcorn though.
No?
Yeah, I was a Boy Scout though.
Okay. So my dad was an entrepreneur, and he was in sales. So he had all of us doing the door to door, and we always like won the popcorn sales, because he was like, other kids were kind of shy and maybe wouldn't go door to door. Maybe their dad would just bring it into work and have people at work buy it, like you see in The Office when I think Stanley's daughter is selling Girl Scout cookies, and they just have everyone in the office buy. I feel like that's what a lot of people do, but that door-to-door experience, I feel like, just builds so much confidence in you as a kid.
Yeah,
so I think it's really valuable if you have kids to have them do something like that, going door to door.
Yeah, for sure. And that was built off of, I mean, literally my dad putting me in situations where it's like, I'm running a cash register, you know, I'm helping negotiate in a pawn shop. Like, you know, that built confidence where it's like, hey, it's nothing for me to go walk around in, you know, random neighborhood, knock on doors. Early in my real estate career, I mean, I was doing that as well. So, yeah.
So my siblings and I had a candy stand called TJ's Candy Stand for Ted and Jack, my brother. But we were selling things to the kids as well. And I see a similarity with you and myself, how we both had dads that were entrepreneurs. And then as kids, we started to get into that ourselves. It's interesting brain thought process, I think, if we look at, is that nature or nurture, that entrepreneurial spirit that starts when you're a kid? What do you think?
I think it's nurture, man. Absolutely. Like, you have families that are more inclined in that way, but somewhere along the way in whatever generation, like someone started that and they pass it on to their kids. Like, I think back to my great granddad. So just side note here, my nickname is actually Fleety. My last name Fleetwood. My great granddad's name was Fleety. Like, that's what everyone called him, and that's why I kind of picked up that nickname
Fleety
too.
Fleetwood?
Yeah, Fleety Fleetwood. I literally, I have high school yearbooks where my name is Fleety Fleetwood in them. Like, from the age of 0 to 18, I did not go by Earl. I went by Fleety. And like, my great granddad ran gas stations, and then my granddad hauled produce and ran gas stations, and then my dad continued that tradition, ran gas stations, and my dad did some real estate stuff too, and started a pawn shop and all that, and like had an auto mechanic shop for a while, all kinds of stuff. So
I guess an interesting diversion here from that would be, did you almost go to med school? You were a pre-med major in college, right?
Yeah. So
you almost detoured off the whole entrepreneurial thing for a bit.
Yeah. So after coming to college, so I moved to Charleston, was a biochemistry major and a Christian studies major. And I think it was this, tension of like, hey, I've always been an entrepreneur, but like, I'll be real, like, I don't come from much. You know what I mean? Like, it would have made my family, I felt this tension of like, hey, I want to go and do something really cool for my family. And being in a small town, those kinds of things, like, not really come from much. It's like, hey, what can I do? And I've always loved science. So it's like, maybe I'll go be a physician. So did biochemistry, graduated with that in Christian studies. And after school, I applied to med school and actually got accepted to 4 colleges. Was going to go to MUSC here in Charleston. And it was in that waiting period, right? So you apply to medical school, and then you've got about a year waiting period before you actually get accepted and go to school. It was like, well, I got to find a job. I got to do something. And on a whim, I think my junior year of college during the summer, I was like, man, I'm just going to get my real estate license. And I was like, if I ever buy my own house ever one day, it will pay off. You know what I mean? So got my real estate license, and I met a guy, Brad Baker, who's still a real estate agent here in Charleston. And in that waiting time, I started working in real estate. So
what year was that? Was that before the whole COVID real estate rush?
Yeah, that was right before that. Okay. Is when I was starting. But yeah, a lot of my cutting my teeth on real estate was through COVID. Okay. You know what I mean? The real estate rush, kind of before that, those kind of things. So I got to see a little bit of what a normal market looked like and get my,
for a brief period of time.
Yeah, get my feet underneath me. And then a lot of my business and growing and learning and becoming a successful real estate agent was during that market. So.
Okay. Yeah. So I know one thing, like, college is kind of pushed on a lot of people, and there's been kind of a trend where not as many people are going to college. Do you regret going to college, or do you think that it's something that has helped you?
So my thoughts on this are this. If you are going into a specialized career like medicine, and like I was planning to, you have to go to college. Absolutely. If that's a thing where you say, hey, that's the only thing I want to do in my life, then you need to. Like, absolutely. You need to go fulfill your passion. You need to do what you think you can be the best at. You need to run after that. At the same time, if you're a person and you say like, hey, I just want to be an entrepreneur, I just want to, do this or do that. No, college isn't like a necessity. As far as regret for myself, I don't regret it. A lot of the best friendships I've built in my life have been through college. I learned a lot of discipline, I think, through college, like being a double major, did honors college there. It literally just like, tested me a lot, like literally and figuratively. Like, it tested like my ability to, really take on a lot at one time. And I grew a lot from that. So I see a lot of good things, even though I'm not using biochemistry, even though I'm not using either, Christian studies, either of my majors nowadays. I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about myself through it. So, yeah,
I mean, like, the same thing kind of happened to Ted. You went for chemical engineering, and now you aren't using it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's funny.
Which, I mean, I feel like that happens with a lot of people. Me, I'm still in accounting, but.
We talked about that on our, top 10 life decisions episode.
Yes.
That was down towards the bottom. Your major or your occupation you choose was towards the bottom of that top 10 decision list, just because so many people do decide to change what they go into after a little bit.
I think it's a part of figuring out what you want to do, though. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, if you know, hey, I want to go into business, but you don't know what kind of business, maybe college isn't the best first move. But if you have an idea of like, hey, I want to go do something in chemistry or something in biology, and you can go make a business out of that, then yeah, maybe college is a good move. But I do not think it's a bad idea to wait to go to college, like get out of high school and, hey, maybe take 2 or 3 years and go work in the working world, figure out what you're passionate about before you really dive into something. For me too, it was a blessing just because I did well in high school and those kinds of things, like came out of school with no student debt. And that's a lot of the reason it made more sense for me to go to college. If you're going to school and you got to take on, 80K, 100K, 120K, starting your life off, like later in life, that might not be a big deal, but like starting life off, that's a bigger deal than I think people realize.
Yeah.
And you need to have a good head on your shoulders and know what direction you're going before I think.
Yeah, I feel like you've already dug yourself into a hole when you start with all that debt.
Right.
I feel like that's really hard for people to climb out of.
Absolutely.
But when you're 16, 17 in high school, deciding if you want to go to college or not, I feel like the cost really isn't presented like that way to a lot of people. People just think, oh, but I'll make more if I go to college.
Right.
And that's that's as far as they really think about it, I think, a lot of the time. So, and I mean, like you said, your passion, you should follow your passion. But at the same time, my sister and I both were dead set on, we're doing engineering. We liked those classes in high school, and now we're both in health. So
yeah.
You never know if your passions will change or stuff like that. So I think waiting, maybe taking a gap year or two and working, I think that's maybe a better road to take, but people just kind of fall into what our culture is, where you go to high school, then you go to college.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you have to just fight the culture there a little bit and do what's best for you. The thing is, your guidance counselor, even your parents, your grandparents, like 60, 80 years from now, when you're looking back in your life, they're not going to be here. And the decisions that you made that impact your life and how you look back in your life are on you. They're not on them. Those guys aren't going to be here. You know what I mean? So you have to do what's best for you, I think.
Yeah. And I also kind of think on the money thing, if you do take a couple years, it kind of gives you a better grasp of how much, $50,000 really is.
Yeah.
Because when I took out debt, I had I ended up coming out of school with like $30,000. And I was like, oh, that's nothing compared to what some people come out with. But, now that, I haven't had to start paying it back yet. But, having like $30,000 of debt on my shoulders, like that, I don't know, like you can kind of feel it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a lot of debt, so I'm like, yeah. I feel it. So,
I guess since we're talking about debt, now might be a good time to pivot into like credit card debt or college debt, or something where you're leveraging your debt for assets. Do you want to talk about that on the real estate side for a lot of people? Because a lot of people, when they invest in real estate, they're picking up debt, but they're using it to leverage the real estate into an asset through a rental property or something else.
Yeah, for sure. So real estate broker is definitely my title. To kind of give a little bit of background before diving into this, but that's only about half of what I do. Most of what I do nowadays, and it's all around leadership. It's all around real estate, and leadership is also real estate investing. So we've got a good handful of rental properties here locally and around the state of South Carolina. And that's how we do that. Like, truthfully, it is leveraging good debt. That's not going into things like, I'm not buying a boat with it. Those are liabilities in a way.
Yeah.
Even talking through, I know you guys were talking about Robert Kiyosaki. That's his big thing is, hey, your primary residence isn't a asset. It's a liability in that way, because it's not putting money in your pocket. It's taking money out of your pocket every month. If you're getting debt to put money in your pocket, and for me, it's all about cash on cash return. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people dive into cap rates, all that kind of stuff when it comes to real estate. For me, it's about cash on cash return. So if I'm getting a good cash on cash return, for me, it's like 20 to 25%, on an investment, then I'm happy to take on debt, because that debt is now a tool to allow me to do bigger projects and at the same time get a good cash on cash return on my down payment, on the value add, whatever I have to do to, make that property give me that cash on cash return. So it's definitely a tool. Credit cards are definitely a tool. A little bit more of a risky tool. I know guys who flip houses on credit cards.
Oh gosh.
And I know guys where it hasn't worked out well. You know what I mean?
Especially like right now, if you're flipping houses, I guess we can go into flipping houses, but like right now in the market where there's not a lot being sold, if you're flipping houses and you just heard that flipping houses was a good way to make money, but you're doing it on credit cards with 20%, and then you don't sell it in the first 3 months, you're not able to pay down that credit card debt, and it's just going to keep growing. Do you want to talk about flipping houses? Because I know you did. Did you flip houses before you started with your brokerage?
Yes. So been flipping houses now pretty consistently 2.5 years or so, 3 years, somewhere in there. Any given time, we usually have 3 to 4 projects going. So it's been a little bit, I've had to take time off. We're actually sitting in my office right now. So that's kind of been a flip. We've been renovating this thing. So that's kind of been a little bit of my focus, but we've got, I think, 4 flips going on right now. So for me, most of that, what we're doing, we are taking on debt. We usually do like private equity, hard money. We're actually working on creating a fund for that that will eventually kind of transition, making a larger hedge fund, those kinds of things. So I do that primarily by myself, but we do have a good amount of partners that also help with that. I'm partnered with a great project management company I actually get to share this office with at Southern Harbor here locally in Charleston. So we work together on a lot of things. It's been awesome. It's definitely one of the parts of the business that I enjoy the most, is seeing a project, a rundown home come, from being awful to actually being a great home that a family can enjoy, being a part of like the design aspects, all those different things. At the same time, making it a profitable company. You'll hear about all the different things, right? So like we got rentals, we got acquisitions, dispositions, we got the brokerage, we got flipping. We're talking about doing this hedge fund. We're talking about doing property management. All those things are run like their own separate entities that are their own separate businesses, and I try my best to keep them in that way instead of treating them as hobbies. There's a lot of what I think goes wrong, and a lot of times is, you have real estate investors, house flippers, watch HGTV, and then they go and do these things for like a hobby, but they aren't actually treating them like a business when they're some of the most legit, businesses you could potentially have. So whatever we do, I would say if anyone's listening and they want a piece of advice there as well, treat it like a business is the biggest thing I can say. And then all those things, like you'll learn a lot about debt. You'll learn about taking on good debt, those sorts of things to really, make your business grow. So
can you talk about your first flip like a little bit? Just what made you kind of make the leap, like that, how you financed it, just everything that kind of went into the process of getting to your first flip?
Yeah, so my very first flip was my primary residence. What I did is I bought a home that needed some work. It was a value add property. I bought it with 3.5% down. It was in North Charleston, and I planned on house hacking it. I didn't want to pay rent, or pay on my mortgage. So I got a bunch of bedrooms. I got a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home. Ended up buying it, renovated a lot of it myself, got a lot of friends over to kind of help paint it, literally do all the small things to really make it livable. And I started renting out bedrooms. And over the course of a year living there, we just continually fixed it up. And when I sold that home, I think I profited somewhere in the range of like $60K. And that was like the seed money to really start like really investing. You know what I mean? And then at the same time, I'm growing my real estate business, making good income there, being pretty frugal. Like before that, I mean, there's been times in my life I've been living on like $500 a month income. You know what I mean? And I'm having to do side hustles to like actually make income to make ends meet and those kinds of things. And once I got out of that and could give my time to something that was, definitely a higher dollar per hour, activity, I was still living the same way. I was still eating rice and chicken every day. Still just, hustling, still grinding. It was that same mentality, still living frugally. That allowed me to save a lot of money that I could just pour into like investing. So.
Yeah, living below your means is really the key, I think, for like becoming wealthy no matter what your job is, right? Mm-hmm. Millionaire Next Door talks about how that's like the common thread they found between all millionaires. It wasn't what career they were in or anything else. It was simply the ability to live below their means. So that's such a great skill to have. And I think if we've talked about this a lot, but like having some sort of budget where you can just kind of track how much you're spending on different things. And if you find that you're spending too much on like leisure activities or even like your car payment, the average car payment right now is, I think, $850.
Yeah.
Like most people I know do not make enough where they can pay $850 for a car payment. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, that's.
Yeah. I'll say this. So I actually don't like that book, The Millionaire Next Door.
No, you don't like it?
No, I don't like that book, man. So I think in the beginning, absolutely. Like when you're starting your business and you are grinding and you're hustling, you have to live below your means. Like if it's like a bodybuilder, right? Like a bodybuilder who's, eating donuts every day. Like he's not going to be a successful bodybuilder. In the same way, if you're an entrepreneur and you're like spending money going on trips, spending money on a fancy car and all these things, like it's going to hurt your progress. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But eventually there's going to be a point where you're having to do less and take care of your business. And it's not going to be so much about how much you can save. Like you can't save your way to being, to having $20 million in the bank. Mm-hmm. Like truthfully, I don't think you can. But in the beginning, I think it matters a lot. You know what I mean? After that, it's not so much a savings problem as it's a cash flow problem. It's like, hey, I'm already doing those things. I'm already saving. I'm already being frugal. And I think that heart behind your business will continue to grow as you grow with your business. But eventually it's more about, the upper end of things. So it's not like how much I can save, but it's about like how much can I make? And that's where the wealth comes from.
I agree with you there. Almost like if you stacked two pyramids on top of each other, like an hourglass. Like in the beginning, you got to learn how to live really frugally. But then as you get better at your career and as you start to earn more, then you don't have to worry as much about living frugally, and it's more about increasing the amount that you can earn over time.
Right. But then at the same time, it's just on a bigger scale. You know what I mean? Like it's still living, like you don't need much, man. Like truthfully, you don't need all the fancy cars, all the fancy clothes, all those things. Even if you got $20 million in the bank, like you don't need those things. Like, are they nice? Like, do you want to live like in a healthy way and have happiness and get joy from like doing cool stuff? Absolutely. But like, that should not be what your life is about. And if your life is about those things, then you're probably not going to be the best business owner. They've
done studies that show that once your income gets above like 70 or 80,000, I forget the exact number. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Exactly.
Happiness doesn't increase anymore after that. Like once you're able to meet your basic needs, once your income keeps growing, happiness doesn't really increase. So yeah, you don't really need that much.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Got any questions for Earl about real estate?
Dude, I can talk about anything, man. We can talk about other businesses.
Have you lost any money on a flip?
No,
I
have not.
Wow.
It's very hard too. I'll be real. Like if you're just not dumb, it's very hard to lose money. Like truthfully.
Good advice for the audience. Don't be dumb and you won't lose money on flipping a house.
There's things, right? And I think it's mostly a common sense thing. I've yet to see someone lose money on a flip. Like truthfully. And that may be because of the market that we live in here in Charleston. But as far as like all the investors I work with, I've seen people break even or get close to breaking even. You know what I mean? Make like $5,000, $10,000, whatever. But generally speaking, I think it's very hard to lose money on the flip unless something crazy happens. Like I've seen crazy things happen with like contractors, suddenly stealing a bunch of stuff and taking a bunch of money and then going and being like drug addicts and, not putting money towards a project. And that makes things a lot harder, even in those situations, like because you're protecting yourself with having good margins on the front end, like you're kind of having contingencies for that. So.
Okay. And I know you mentioned on your first flip that you did most of the work yourself. Yep. Do you still do that? Do you do any work yourself or do you usually contract most of the work out?
Yes, I don't really do any work anymore. If I do anything, it's like I might help out with landscaping. I kind of enjoy that. So, but when you have, when you're working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week on a real estate brokerage and at the same time you got other things going on in life, it's hard to do your own work on your projects. So I just don't, I'd rather hire that out. So
yeah, if you guys hear any like construction noise, there's people working on the office right now.
Yeah, man.
Right on the other side of this wall. So
yep. But dude, yeah, I can talk about anything. We can talk about Fleety's fireworks. We can talk about real estate brokerage, wherever you guys want to take it.
Let's hear about Fleety's fireworks. This was another business that Earl had.
Dudes, that may be my favorite business. That business is still going today. So Fleety's started when I was 16 years old. I was flipping cars. I had kind of ended with peanuts. I'd actually moved into a concessions business where I was traveling around every single weekend with a concession. It was an auction company called Cogburn Auction Company that held auctions like locally in kind of like my area town. And every weekend I would like sell concessions to them. And then 4th of July would come around and New Year's would come around. And about a quarter mile from our house, there used to be like a fireworks stand. And literally I'll just watch every year, all these people lined up, just giving money away, literally spend like $200, $300. And I'll go and I'll just like watch, like seriously, I'm like, man, I kind of want to do that. And I talked to my dad about it and I'm like, hey dad, do you think we could do this? And he's like, yeah, we can do it. And I was like, okay. And me and my dad started looking for a fireworks stand. We bought a fireworks stand that actually was in commission even until last year. So I've been running for, 10 years now, a decade, for $700. It was an old concessions trailer. I remember I ripped everything out of it. I put new flooring in it. I built shelves in it, all those kinds of things. And we got a business license. I couldn't put it in my name because I was 16. And I couldn't get licensure in my name because I was 16. So me and my dad basically formed a partnership and started Fleety's Fireworks. It actually had to be really legit. I learned out when you have, explosives and you're selling those to the public. So I had to go through all the insurance and everything and grew that business. And it was really cool because 4th of July and New Year's, if you think about it, it's when you're out of school, right? Mm-hmm. So I was actually able to run that business for the entirety of me going to high school, me going to college. And it was after college that we really started like putting more time and effort into the business and went from having 1 location to having 5 locations here around South Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah. So we sold most of the business actually last year. We still have 1 stand. It's the OG stand in Barnwell, South Carolina. We upgraded it since, and it's been really cool. Honestly, I still love it. A lot of I think my sales skills were built selling fireworks, honestly.
Is it that person-to-person sales? Is that the reason why it was your favorite business? Or
dude, it's just so fun, man. I have so many memories. Also, some of the most stressful times of my life that I don't know how we pulled out of, but we pulled out of it, especially in the expansion of that business. A lot of memories in that business, man. That makes some of my favorites. It's also one of the longest standing. It's still going today. Started, it's over a decade in. So It's been really cool. And dude, I could talk about Fleeties all day. I actually did a podcast once talking about Fleeties with another podcast here locally. But,
I love how everything is just named Fleeties and then the name of the business.
Yeah. Real estate, it didn't sound as professional, so we didn't do that for real estate.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can you talk maybe about one of the lessons that you took from one of these businesses when you were in middle school or high school that you applied to your real estate business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing, all these random businesses, so a couple lessons. One is, and this is the side hustle mentality. In a moment, it was really fun. And in a moment, it was really, and I think it built in me a discipline and built in me a grind. I think back to every single weekend, getting up early in the morning, going buying peanuts, spending $16 for a tank of propane, selling boiled peanuts, every weekend, doing that for years. And I think about concessions, doing that every weekend. It built a consistency and a discipline in me that I still use today. Mm-hmm. It's a small thing, but taking those things and then just applying it on a greater scale, in something that's actually way more legit than selling peanuts is, helping families buy and sell real estate investing, those kinds of things. It's definitely one of those things. And I think it also just helped me discover what I was passionate about, doing all those different things. And it kind of funneled down to real estate, you know what I mean? And taking all those different skills and brought me here. So yeah, a lot. I do all kinds of things, honestly. But that hustle and that grind and that discipline is definitely the biggest for sure.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, just for those who might not know, the difference between a real estate brokerage, mm-hmm. A realtor, somebody who flips houses, all those different avenues?
Good question, Nick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For sure. So your run-of-the-mill real estate agent, they generally, what it takes to get into real estate is you have to go do about 120 hours worth of classes. And then you have to take a real estate exam, a national and a state portion of the exam. It's not too hard. Most people do it in about 2 to 3 weeks, take their test, mm-hmm. and now you're a real estate agent. The thing is about being a real estate agent is you have to hang your license somewhere, and you have to hang your license under a real estate broker. Real estate brokers have to be in the business in South Carolina at least for 3 years. And then you have additional testing and a lot more classes you have to take on top of that. So it's additional education, also just time in the business sort of thing. And the real estate broker is basically the one who holds the liability and licenses for the company, and the real estate agents hang their license under the broker. So the brokerage is, really where the agents work, I guess. And that's what the broker does. So it's more of me getting out of sales instead of working as much with, buyers and sellers and those guys being my clients. It's now I have real estate agents who are my clients and they've hung their license with me. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So you were a realtor for how long before you started the brokerage?
Yeah, I was a realtor for 3 years before I got my license, and then we started the brokerage about 4 months after I got my license. So
okay. And did you say you have 8 agents working for you now, or?
Yeah, we have 8 agents that work with Bright City. So,
what is your favorite part about moving kind of more into that management role, and your least favorite part about moving away from that sales role?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, I think I'm pretty good at sales. Like, truthfully, it is not what I can be the best at.
You've got a lot of experience.
Yeah, it's truthfully, and I think that's like the hospitality aspect of it and being able to, empathize with people, actually help them. And real estate sales is different than any other type of sales. Like, people think of salesmen, they're thinking of like guys slinging cars and like all these different things. Real estate sales is different in a lot of different ways. Like, if you go to a car lot, for example, you're meeting a salesperson, and after about 4, 5, 6 hours, you're not having any more conversations with them. With real estate, I might meet a client and I'm working with them for 3 months, 6 months, at least 30 days. And it's a slower sales cycle, and it's a cycle where you have to be your true self, and you have to be legit. Just honestly, you have to be who you say you are. And there's like an integrity there that I really like about real estate sales. So I love that part of the business. But at the same time, I think what I'm more passionate about is really building the business side of things. And that is like bringing a team together, working with a team, the leadership aspect, developing leaders. I mean, that's really my one thing, and the only thing I do nowadays is truthfully leading the vision of Bright City and developing leaders. I mean, there's a lot of small things that go into that, but that is where my sole focus is. So, in the meantime, like, hey, if I got leadway, like and a deal comes up or I got a referral, like a lot of times I'm passing it off to other agents. But if I can, or if like, it's someone I know, I'm still in a position in my business where like I am doing a little bit of sales on the side, like 2 or 3 deals a month, nothing crazy, but the business is really like my passion. That makes sense.
You just talked about building a team. I think it's one of the bigger pockets books. I think it might be BRRRR by Daniel Green. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the BRRRR strategy.
Yeah, I know about BRRRR. Yeah, I know about BRRRR.
I think it's that book where he talks a lot about building a team of like a Rockstar contractor, property manager, and real estate agent that you can go through if you're trying to flip houses and stuff like that. How essential is it to have like a Rockstar property manager, contractor, etc.? And which one do you think is the most important if you're looking to get into real estate investing and flipping houses and stuff like that?
Yeah. Every one of those people has their own individual role. For me, and I might be biased, and I 100% agree, by the way, like, you can't do it alone. Like, if you're doing it alone, you're not doing enough. You know what I mean? If you're doing it alone, like, you're definitely limiting yourself in a lot of ways. Trying to manage your own projects, trying to property manage with like tenants, those kinds of things. Like, there's no point to doing that.
Skill sets are so wide that I feel like it's ignorant or arrogant to think that you can have all those different skill sets and do it better than other people.
And it's not that you can't. Like, there are people out there who can do things really well. But the thing is, at some point, it's diminishing returns. It's not worth your time. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather pay more money and have more time. Like, absolutely. Of those roles, so you think of the contractor, you have to have a good contractor. If your contractor sucks, or your contractor doesn't know what they're doing, I mean, that's going to be a really big pain point as you get into deals. Property manager, definitely really important, but a property manager's job is pretty easy. Property managers might be hearing this and being like, he didn't know what he's talking about, but it's easy in the way of like, hey, it is a specialized thing, but they're getting tenants in, they're managing the property, those kinds of things. But it's more passive. Property managers don't make their money off of one deal. They make their money off of having 40, 50, 300 properties that they manage.
Yeah, because they're usually taking like a 5% cut off the monthly rental stuff.
Usually,
like that.
Usually 10 is normal around here, 10 to 12. I've seen 8, but usually there's a lot of fees with that.
Okay.
So the real estate agent, to me, I don't want to say is the most important, but can be the most important. The real estate agent, and really their job, and being a realtor myself and speaking to this and mostly working with investors nowadays, I mean, that's most of what my business is as an agent, is they're the glue. Like truthfully, they are the glue that pieces together. All right, we got the seller and we got the deal, and here's a contractor and here's a property manager. They're the person who's connecting to all those different people, and having a realtor who's able to jump on things. I mean, without them, it's hard to get things initiated. And I want to say they're sort of the tip of the spear in the way. The person directing the spear is, the guy trying to buy the property. Realtor's probably the tip of the spear. And you got the contractor on one side of the spear and you got the property manager on the other side. If you're trying to do the BRRRR strategy in that situation, you know what I mean? The spear looks a little bit different if you're just doing flips or buying rentals or whatever else. But good realtor goes a long ways for sure.
Do you use the BRRRR strategy, or when you were flipping, what was your main strategy with that?
Yeah, so I had
straight flip. Sorry.
So the Charleston market's hard to do the BRRRR strategy in, just truthfully. A lot of that is because of the price point and rental incomes. Rental incomes around here are still trying to catch up to the price point. We're at a high price point, like truthfully, and people project rents to continue rising, like here in Charleston, as they have in other more established markets. It's not that Charleston isn't a more established market. It's just that appreciation has been crazy, and rents take a little while to catch up to that. So BRRRR strategy for me is good on properties that are above about $250,000. And the reason for that is this. Generally, if you're thinking profitability and the profit you're going to make on a property, if you're flipping it, should be in the range of like 15 to 20% profit. Okay. And then you're paying taxes on top of that. If you're BRRRRing a property, you need to have really good profit ranges. That's because when you refi it, you're only probably, pulling out like 20, 30%, usually more like 30%. You're doing that 70% LTV or that 65% LTV. And you're not having to pay taxes on that. But the thing is, you are having to pay usually a loan origination. And now you got to pay property manager fees and all those different things. And a lot of times on smaller properties that don't have as much value, like the amount of money that you're paying just to refi that property is going to be more than what you'll be paying taxes on if you actually just sold the property. You know what I mean? So in some instances, I do the BRRRR. I have done the BRRRR. I've had instances where I've regretted doing the BRRRR because I do the numbers afterwards. I'm like, hey, I just want to add to my rental portfolio, and I'm doing that. But then I'm like, man, if I just sold that property, I would have paid less in taxes than I would have paid in loan costs. You know what I mean? Because it was like a lower price point property. So BRRRR strategy, people talk about all the time, like it's really easy. I think it is like the toughest strategy to do well, truthfully, and it's also very market contingent. Buying rentals is pretty simple, just getting like turnkey rentals. Getting getting rentals just need like a little bit of work, and then just managing that project yourself is like pretty straightforward. Flips are a little bit harder, and then the BRRRR strategy is like, you got to know what you're doing to do BRRRR strategy well, I think. So,
do you only flip locally and buy houses locally, or would you ever consider doing one, in a different city?
Right now, so we are buying only in South Carolina. So flips is really just in the Charleston metropolitan area, but rentals all over South Carolina.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And just to go back real quick, because we try to help our audience with literacy on the weight side and the wealth side. Can you define some of those terms for the audience, since we have a young audience that might not know what some of those terms mean? I think refinance and LTV are probably the two that the audience might not be as familiar with.
Yeah, for sure. So LTV is your loan to value. Generally, when you get a loan, like if a property is valued at, let's say $200K, if you're doing a 70% LTV, which is pretty standard for a cash out refi on an investment property, somewhere between 65 to 70% of that home's value, that means that you can pull out $130,000 to $140,000 to actually pay off old loans. So let's say if you bought a house for $100K, put $25K into it. So now you owe $125K on that property, and the value of that property is going to be $200K afterwards. You can pull out $130, pay off all those old loans, and then have a little bit of money left over. That's kind of the BRRRR strategy, like buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat, sort of thing. And then what's the other term? Refi.
Yeah, refi, yeah.
Yeah, refi. I mean, refinance is exactly what it sounds like. So you have financing on a property and you're refinancing the property. So you're putting under different type of financing. Like you already own it, but you just want to change up the financing on it. Different types of refis. I mean, you can do primary residence refi, cash out refi. You can do, what's the other ones? I'm not a lender.
Yeah.
So I just do cash out refis, honestly, man. So they've got all different types. So.
Okay. And can you talk about the rate of return a little bit? Like, cause I know you said you try to hit 15-20%, right?
Yeah.
Is that cash you personally put in, or is that like total price paid for the property, including the loan you get and all that?
Right. So for me, cash on cash return is the biggest thing. So if you think about like a BRRRR strategy property, generally after you've renovated the property and you refinance it, so you paid off all the owed loans, you don't have any money in that property anymore because the value add that you put into a property is really your down payment. So you don't have any money locked in that property. And let's say you're making $200 a month on rent, then that is infinite returns. Like that is infinite cash on cash returns. That is like the best you could possibly
Your
do.
denominator's zero.
Yeah, truthfully. So for me, if I'm just buying straight rentals or, keeping things as rentals, let's say if I've got to put, 50, 60, let's say I got to put 100K into a property. If I'm putting 100K into a property and that money is like locked into that property, then I want to see me getting 20 to 25K every single year off of that property. And that's hard to find. Like truthfully, it's tough to find, but I think it's worth finding. So
What you said there just got me thinking, maybe the audience could benefit from you going through just the mentality and the mindset you have to have with when to actually go in on a property. If you're looking to invest, when to pull the trigger. Because I know some people just want a deal to happen, so they kind of force it. If you could just maybe talk through your mentality around that kind of thing, since you have flipped several properties.
Yeah. I think it's a thing that comes with experience. It's also like, again, getting a good realtor who's going to be like, nah, man, you don't want to buy that property. That's in a bad area of town. That property's got this, and having a good contractor saying like, man, you don't understand the extent of the damage that's in that property. Like it's going to take a lot more than you think to renovate the property. So like, it's a balance between being in like, people talk about like analysis paralysis. You need to find good deals. Like do not sacrifice, just getting a deal done for doing good deals is what I first want to say. But you also need to figure out, what do you want to do? You know what I mean? How are you going to define having a good deal sort of thing? As far as flips go, I mean, I stick pretty closely to, and I can define this as well, but like the 65 to 70% rule. So that for me is, I think, a really, really good rule of thumb. If you can find a property that you can purchase a property and renovate that property for about 70% or even 65% of what the ARV will be, so the after repair value of the property would be, then usually you're pretty set. The tough part is finding those properties in a competitive market like Charleston. A lot of times we're having to find them like off market, those kinds of things. So I would say get connected to a real estate agent who can help you find off market properties. If you can find off market properties, it makes it a lot easier. And then really just do research, man. It's the biggest thing. But once you find it, you just got to pull the trigger. If you don't, someone else will. So.
And finding a good real estate agent, do you have any tips for that for people that are looking to get a real estate agent? Because you do have to keep in mind people that are looking for a real estate agent, they make money off of selling you the property. So they do have an incentive to
for sure.
sell you. Like you have to keep that in mind. Just like when you go to the recruiting station for the Army, you have to keep in mind, like they're trying to sell you. They're trying to get you to buy. So
yeah. So couple ideas for that. If you're a part of any kind of like local networks, that's pretty helpful. Usually most cities, most communities have some kind of like real estate meetup, like truthfully. Here in Charleston, I run one called the Charleston Circle. We have about 20 or 30 people come to once a month. It's at a local brewery. There's like 3 or 4 other ones. There's also about 5 or 6 Facebook pages of like local investors. And literally you can go in there and anonymously drop something so you're not getting blown up by people like, hey, who do you recommend is the best investor realtor in town? And people just drop names in there. And then you can research that person. Big things to look out for, I would say, like, look at the number of deals they're doing. If you're asking them questions, ask them questions like, hey, who do you know? Like, do you know a good contractor? Do you know of a good property manager? Like, who do you know in town? Like, you want someone who's going to be the glue to like stick everything together. And also ask them how they're finding deals. Like, if they're going to be an investor realtor, they better know how to find off-market deals and find deals that are good. Stuff on market, generally it's either being listed by a realtor who isn't an investor themselves, or it's been combed through by other realtors or, other investors who would have bought the property. So if it's hitting the market, generally it's, by a realtor who doesn't really know much, or it's a property that's already been, combed through by, a bunch of other people.
So you probably won't find too many good deals on Zillow.
They're out there. It's just, it's tough in Charleston. Another thing, man, is having a good realtor who can like negotiate deals. Like
do they ask for 10% off when they're making that deal?
They should. So realtors are going to hate me saying this, but like if you're buying a home, you need to negotiate, especially in the market we're in right now. Realtors a lot of times are going to be like, it's worth it. Just pay asking price. It makes it a little bit easier on them, but at the same time, like you need a realtor who's going to get you a good deal. So in Charleston, it's pretty easy right now to negotiate. I think last month we saw an average that homes were being sold for 95% of list value, and that's on market. So a year ago, homes were being sold for an average of 101% of list value. So that's a really big shift in the market. So,
yeah, I think it might have been Chris and Saeed from Higher Standard that gave a stat that was something like a year ago, 40% of homes were going at the value that they were listed at, the list price. And then like now it's like 10% are going at the list price. So that would reflect that 101% to 95%.
Yeah. It's been a crazy shift in the market. So yeah, man, just ask good questions for your realtor. Also ask them what they're going to list properties for. Generally speaking, unless like it is not bad to pay a realtor 6%. The best realtors are worth it. Truthfully, like they charge that much because they're good realtors. You know what I mean? But generally you can still get a good realtor and pay 5% on a listing. In those situations, like 2.5% is going to buyer's agent. Listings, is taking 2.5%. And if they're helping you buy the property and making money on it, and you're, making a relationship with them where you're going to be doing, 5, 10, 12 deals.
We'll just pause. There's a lot of music. Motorcycles outside.
That's funny. Yeah, they're kicking it. We out here in the hood.
Yeah.
Out here in the hood. The office is in the hood, man.
All right. If you want to pick up where you left off.
Yeah, so those realtors, like you should not be scared of paying 6% is basically what I'm trying to say to a quality realtor, because they're worth it. Like truthfully, if they're going to be doing their job, they're going to be connecting you to the people you need to be connected with and finding you off market deals and listing your property. Like that's a good deal. Like that 1% is not going to make or break the bank.
How key do you think it is for if someone's looking to buy, not for like their primary residence, but as an investment property? How key is it that they find a real estate agent that's a real estate investor themselves? Do you think that's like a must have, or is it not really that important?
I don't think it's a must have. I think it's a good thing. It's pros and cons, right? Because if you have someone who's like really, really, really investor, again, they might be keeping a lot of the deals for themselves. You know what I mean? Just truthfully. But at the same time, usually people who are realtors like aren't doing, 20, 30, 40 flips a year. Yeah. They're doing maybe like 2 or 3. And all the other ones that they see, they're giving away to their clients. So I don't think it's a must have. You just need a realtor who knows what's up, who's been in a business. I would say you need a realtor who's been in business at least 2 years.
Okay.
So that's another piece of advice. Ask them how many deals they've done. That's a great question. Literally, how many deals did you do this past 12 months? If they've done less than, 15 deals, probably not a good realtor. Average realtor in South Carolina, I think, does 2 deals a year.
So this gets into the meme I saw a little while ago that was like all the realtors that got their license in the past year that are going back to working at Starbucks. Like
yeah. The top 20% of real estate agents do about 80% of business. Yeah. And the top 5% do something crazy. I don't know, they do something crazy like 75% of the business or something. I don't know if that math works out. It's some crazy statistics like that.
I mean, that's like the 80-20
rule is like across the board.
Every occupation.
Yeah. Most successful realtors you'll see doing anywhere between, 30 to 80 deals a year. If they're doing 80 deals a year, they're probably a little bit too busy. If they're doing like that range of somewhere between 25 to 40, they're probably a really solid realtor, I would say.
Okay. Could we talk about trends a little bit? I know you said that, that people, what was it, are paying 95% of list price now. Do you have any predictions for where the market is going in the next couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I am blinded a little bit to the United States as a whole. I only truly can say I'm an expert here in Charleston. As far as Charleston goes, we're still Charleston. I think we're insulated a little bit compared to a lot of markets that really saw crazy appreciation. I think about like Austin, Texas. I think about like Seattle, Washington. You saw like, 50% of home values. I mean, just skyrocketing appreciation. And those markets are seeing, a strong downturn right now. Right now, the biggest thing that we're seeing is the market normalizing because of interest rates. Interest rates are directly related to inflation and directly related to how well the stock market is. Usually what happens is when the stock market does really good, people put their money in the stock market and they don't put them in the bond market. And usually interest rates are more related to the bond market than the stock market. But when the stock market does really bad, people put their money in the bond market and interest rates do a little bit better. So it's a weird season right now because inflation, it's throwing a kink in all of that. That interest rates are just killing people. People who would be buying a home aren't buying a home. It's caused competition to go down a lot. And a lot of, the highly competitiveness we saw over the past few years was low interest rates. It was low interest rates, low inventory, high demand because of the interest rates.
Artificial savings that people had because of the stimulus checks as well.
Yeah, that as well. So, and now we're seeing inflation. So as far as Charleston goes, I personally see the market normalizing. We're getting back to a healthier market. We're still at about 2,400 homes on the market. Pretty much average for Charleston, pre-COVID was about 6,000. So we're still lower inventory. We're still number one city in the United States. So we're insulated in that way. I don't see the market rapidly depreciating or anything, but will we take a 10% turn like in depreciation? Potentially. Like it's very hard to say. We will see how the summer shakes up. Usually daylight savings time is the start of real estate season. So that's coming up here in March. Daylight saving time, people are getting out of work later in the day, or they're getting out, there's still light out later in the day. So they're viewing homes, people are more listing more homes. And that's really where you're going to see what the real estate market is going to do. So between March to say October, I think we'll have a lot better feel for Charleston.
Okay. And you mentioned the rising interest rates. Has that kind of changed your strategy at all for flips or for investing?
Yeah, I'm not buying as many rentals right now. For me, it's also my focus individually. Like I'm pretty young, so I feel like I have time to still buy rentals. For me, it's more about just like building income. Mm-hmm. So to kind of give you guys an analogy, you guys ever heard of like the Golden Goose sort of analogy? Mm-hmm. I'm talking about that old Aesop fable. I think it's Aesop. Is
that where he's laying the golden egg?
Yeah, it's like the goose. Yeah, it's like his farmer's like one day he's like found a goose. He's like taking care of his farm. And then this goose pops up and he's like laying golden eggs. And then he gets real greedy after a while. And he's like, man, these golden eggs ain't enough. And he like murders a goose. And he like tries to get more of like the golden eggs out of the goose, but there's nothing there. So in my mind, real estate works very similarly. Like if you buy a property, that property is a golden goose that is going to lay golden eggs, which is going to be rental income. That's going to be cash flow. And you can kill that goose, and you might get an egg or two out of it, but you're going to stop that income. If that makes sense. So it's a balance of that. But at the same time, me being who I am, like my focus right now is like building the brokerage. Like truthfully, like I am not trying to make a bunch of golden gooses. I'm trying to make the golden goose, which is my real estate brokerage. So I am using real estate and flips really as a means to power and just create more income that can like drop into the brokerage. So rentals, I'm going to wait until we have the golden goose that's laying golden eggs, which for me is my business. And then we'll take that and we'll throw it into more golden gooses, which will be the rental properties.
Okay.
So
two things for the audience real quick. How old are you? Because you mentioned you're still young.
So I'm 25.
Yeah.
About to turn 26 in April.
When I first met you, I thought you were much older just because you seemed so responsible and like you had your life together so well. Wow, this guy's already so far in life. But yeah, you're our age. So, and then the other thing is it looks like the Fed will keep increasing interest rates the next few months to try to get inflation down from like 6% to their target of 2 or 3%.
Yeah. So, I mean, they go up and down every week. Like truthfully, like they were down a little bit 2 weeks ago and then they went back up and now they're back down a little bit. We're I'm not a lender again. So, I can't really speak a crazy amount to like interest rates, but yeah, we're seeing things in the 7 to 8% range. Basically, I think they'll stay pretty steady for that, throughout the year. We may see some, people getting interest rates in the 6s or 5s, maybe sometime this year, but it's hard to say.
So my follow-up to that is, should people, if they're looking to buy soon, do you think they should be keeping track of what the interest rates and base their purchase off that? Or is it, hey, this is a utility, you need somewhere to live, just buy now, don't worry about what your mortgage rate is going to be? Yeah,
so usually when I get hit with this question, I have a few questions myself. I can't, it's hard to paint with like, a single brush stroke on this entire topic. The questions are like, hey, what are your options otherwise? Are you going to rent? Okay, so you're going to put $2,000 a month into a landlord's pocket. Okay, is that more advantageous, throwing away $24,000 this year, or paying an additional $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 in interest until you can refinance? So posing that question there. Other thing is it going to stop you? Like, are you going to, sacrifice that you're not going to get a home that makes sense for you because interest rates are really high? If so, then, it's not really a question, then we got to wait. There are other options. We can talk through like 2-1 buy downs. It's really, really a big topic nowadays. 2-1 buy downs are like, hey, the first year you're buying your interest rate down 2%, the next year you're buying it down 1%, and then it goes back to the normal interest rate after that. And what you're hedging against is you're going to eventually refi on your property. So that's my questions is like, hey, what's your situation? Sit down with a lender. That's another person we were talking about earlier. We're talking about like property manager, talking about contractor. Lender's another big piece. Having you a good private equity lender who can do hard money on flips and those kinds of things. And also having a conventional lender who can help you on the refi side, whether that's, if you're refining commercially or residentially, whatever you're going to do there. But talk to a lender and say like, hey, what can we do? Is there any options for like a buy down right now if you're buying a primary residence, those sorts of things. And just look at the numbers, man. I think it's the biggest things. Like, don't make it about emotion. Like, everyone's getting high interest rates right now, but they're not going to be this high forever. So
also, they're nowhere near as high as they were for our parents in the was it like 19%
in the 80s?
Yeah.
We're complaining about 6-7% because we're used to that zero interest. The last 14 years, interest rates were basically artificially suppressed. So we went on a run, but that's not actually normal,
Yeah, like we're about normal for interest rates right now, historically. What's making it hard is like income hasn't caught up with that, and the housing market has, been on a skyrocket. So it's making it harder for people to buy. That's a real problem. You know what I mean? It's hard for people to buy homes right now. That's a problem for real estate agents. A lot of people are getting out of the business right now because of that as well. But I think it's all an individual, situation, looking at like, hey, what's your finances? Does it make sense you're getting interest rate now if it's not going to stop you? You probably are going to get a better deal on a home right now this time of year than you will probably around like April, May. You probably will get a better deal on a home probably in fall or, wintertime as well. Like, again, we're seeing people negotiating again. So it's not a bad move to try and get a home now. But just don't make it an emotional thing. Literally just make it a numbers thing is what I would say.
I feel like that's a good philosophy for a lot of purchases. Try not to make it an emotional decision. Try to think through the numbers and see what makes sense.
Yeah. Real estate's tough to do that with too. It's funny, man. That's a good realtor. Here's another quality of a good realtor. So people are like this, right? So you got a listing agent, you got a buyer's agent, and you got the seller on this side, and you got the buyer on this side. And seller and buyer are doing this. They're like causing waves, right? They're all emotional. They're like angry, yelling on the phone, like, they want money. They want transaction costs, all these different things. And then the realtors, they should just be doing this. Like they shouldn't be all of these, they shouldn't be causing emotion is the point of it. Like you're meant to put a stop to the emotion. And while people are on a roller coaster, you're just there like, hey, let's work through this. Let's figure it out. You're calm, cool, collected. And I think that's what makes really, really good realtors too. So.
We ready to move on to the books of the month, or do you have anything else for Earl?
I don't have anything else. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the February Weights and Wealth Book of the Month for our book club here.
Yes, we have the E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. And he talks about the E-Myth in the first chapter of the book. It's just that you can't be the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician all at once. I know Earl kind of talked a little bit about that he's trying to work on his brokerage right now and he's not really working in it anymore. A lot of entrepreneurs try to do all three, and that's something that's very hard to do and doesn't really pay dividends in the long run. So
yes, I think as Nick said, like the main myth of being an entrepreneur is that you have to wear all the different hats. But like Earl basically paraphrased it earlier. If you're trying to scale your business, you have to do the things that you are most skilled at, and you don't want to be doing all the little jobs that have diminishing returns. I think that's almost word for word what you said, and that basically also paraphrases the E-Myth. But the E-Myth is one of the most common books that I send to people if I think they would gain a lot from it, especially on the personal training side, people trying to do all these different things when they should be outsourcing some of these smaller tasks if they want to scale their business.
Right. Absolutely. I actually use an analogy a lot of like the working on and working in your business. And this kind of goes back to, and I know you guys were talking about Robert Kiyosaki. It goes back to the cash flow quadrant a little bit. Like you talk about the different quadrants of like, hey, you're like a small business owner, you own a business, or you're like an investor.
Yep.
I find the higher, people like working with people, seeing them in different tiers of life and those things, like the really big business owners, they're working in all four. And that sounds crazy, but like at some degree, they're working in all four spheres. Like they're being a business owner, they're being an investor. At the same time, they do have tasks. They do have a day-to-day work that they're having to do. And I mean, I'm finding myself in that as well. And that's working in the business while working on it. And the analogy I use with a lot of my team that I'm like training is your business is like a rubber band. So if you take two fingers and you put it here, you got one side which is working on your business. You got the other side which is working in your business. If you put a rubber band here, and if you don't create tension by working on your business at the same time as working in your business, like let's say you just work in your business, but you don't work on it, you're not building a pipeline of sales, and like that side comes here, rubber band falls because there's no tension on it. Same way, if you're over here and you're just like working, on your business, you're making your business cards look great, you're working on your website, but you're not actually like doing sales, rubber band falls. You know what I mean? It's doing both of those is as important as breathing in is breathing out.
That's a great analogy. So, I love that. I'm probably going to steal that from you.
They work together, breathing in, breathing out. Like you got to work in it, you got to work on it at the same time.
Yeah, that's really great. Our next book on the weight side is, I've got two books here. So I've got Thinner, Leaner, Stronger and Beyond Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. The original book is Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. These are by Mike Matthews. I first got that book as an ebook a long time ago, but Mike Matthews is really good at distilling the science of what works as far as lifting and exercise, and looking at studies and breaking down the studies for you. All of his advice is if you go on Legion or muscleforlife.com and you read his articles, which is basically, these books are basically all of his articles just kind of put into a book. But if you read his articles, you'll see how he's constantly citing sources, and nothing that he says is going to be gimmicky or trendy. So if you're looking for a basic book to learn about lifting, how to lift, a good program, a good diet, you're going to want to read one of these books. Again, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger is like the original book. But if you're a lady out there, Thinner, Leaner, Stronger is just slightly different. And then Beyond Bigger, Leaner, Stronger is like a second book in that series. So these are your weights books for February. And then E-Myth was the wealth book for February. Nick, do you have our February raffle winner?
I do, yes. This is Aiden Comerford from the University of Dayton. He won the $5 Starbucks gift card.
Yes, Aiden has shared our clips on Instagram a couple of times, and I think he's maybe shared a TikTok or commented on TikToks or something.
He follows us on TikTok and likes all our videos. He's like the only one. So
please
follow
Aiden.
us on TikTok.
Earl, do you use social media for your real estate brokerage at all?
Yeah, we do. We're actually just now hiring someone to kind of handle that for us. But yeah, we're on Instagram. You can check us out. We're Bright City LLC. We do a little bit of stuff on Facebook, but Instagram is our biggest. And we're building out some like TikTok, LinkedIn stuff. We just started filming with that.
Okay.
And again, as the office gets done, we're going to do more filming. We're working on building a little studio here and stuff. So it's coming together. So,
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Anywhere else you want to plug for people to go to, or just that Instagram
Man, I
website or anything?
Yeah, for the business, just check us out on Instagram and Facebook. I would say our website is brightcitygroup.com. You can check out all our agents there, what we got going on, that kind of stuff. I'll say this, one thing I'm really excited about. If you're in the Charleston area, I'm going to invite you to this. We're doing an oyster roast here at the office. It's going to be our office launch, March 31st. We actually are supporting Park Circle Cares, local nonprofit. They deal with food insecurity. So they give around 7,000 to 11,000 pounds of food away every single month to the North Charleston neighborhood. And from that as well, we also have, I think, 6 other businesses that are coming to be a part of that. So free oyster roast. We're going to have live music. If you're in Charleston area, just going to be a part of it.
Awesome. We really enjoyed this interview. I think, Nick, I can just speak for you on that. This was a lot of fun. So if the audience has any questions for Earl, maybe send them our way, and maybe we can do this again down the road, have you on again.
Absolutely.
One of our main real estate guy, I guess.
Yeah, let's see how Bright City goes, man. Yeah, keep you guys updated. So,
all right. And then Weights and Wealth, you guys know where to find us. That will be in the show notes. So just let us know what you think or if you have any questions. Thank you.